The United Nations Secretary General has announced that he will rebut and counter and fight back against political speech around the world with which it disagrees. They will deem you a hater. They will deem your speech hateful. They will deploy their massive resources against you. Do you think I'm exaggerating? Well, take it from the friendly-looking grandpa who rules over you, even though you've probably never heard of him, let alone voted for him. Here, let's start with the first clip.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today to mark the launch of the United Nations Strategy and Plan of Action on Hate Speech. This strategy and plan of action are brand new, but they are rooted in our oldest commitments. Respect for human rights without discrimination based on race, sex, language, or religion, in a thread running through the United Nations Charter. When the Charter was drafted, the world had just witnessed genocide on an industrial scale. Hate speech had sown the seeds, building on millennia of scapegoating and discrimination against the Jews and culminating in the Holocaust. 75 years on, we are in danger of forgetting this lesson. Around the world, we see a groundswell of xenophobia, racism, and intolerance, violent misogyny, and also anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred. And in some places, Christian communities are attacked.
Well, now that starts off a little bit promising or inoffensive, I guess. I mean, I'm against the violence of the Holocaust. I'm Jewish myself. But the thing is, the Holocaust wasn't done by words. There have been mean words said against Jews for thousands of years, as Guterres himself pointed out. The problem is in Nazi Germany is not the mean words. In fact, as countries went in the world, it certainly wasn't the worst. It was that in Germany, real laws were changed so that violence against Jews was permitted. The Jews had the laws taken away from them. In fact, violence was and anti-Semitism became required by law. That was the problem in Germany. In fact, as you may know, the Weimar Republic itself had hate speech laws, and Hitler and his Nazis were charged under those laws. Didn't stop them. Okay, let's keep watching.
Hateful and destructive views are enabled and amplified exponentially through digital technology, often targeting women, minorities, and the most vulnerable. Extremists gather online and radicalize new recruits. In both liberal democracies and authoritarian regimes, some political leaders are bringing the hate-fueled ideas and language of these groups into the mainstream, normalizing them, coarsening the public discourse, and weakening the social fabric.
Okay, just a reminder, the United Nations is not a country. He's not a prime minister or a president. The UN is not a legitimate government with its own mind and its own mandate, because it's just a meeting place for the 200 or so legitimate countries with their own minds. It's a meeting place. It has no natural jurisdiction or mandate other than what the 200 countries behind it agree to. But he seems to have views of his own on individual politicians in individual countries. And in fact, he seems to suggest, even in liberal democracies, he specifically said that, he suggests that even in liberal democracies, elected officials, or maybe even the countries themselves, are illegitimate, and that their politics are hateful, and obviously, therefore, in need of remedy. He's saying that. Now, do you think he's talking about Iran? A country that actually does call for the Holocaust-like annihilation of America, of Israel and America, both. Do you think he's talking about China, which foments hostility against, let's say, the Tibetans or Uyghur Muslims? Do you think he's talking about Venezuela's brutal dictator, Nicolas Maduro? Of course not. Now, even if he were, I don't think it would be his proper place. Who cares what some unelected, unaccountable bureaucrat diplomat has to say about any of those dictators? I'm more interested in what elected leaders like Trump or even Trudeau have to say about that. I suppose those elected leaders could have a vote at the UN to condemn a foreign country leader, but that's the point. They would be on the record. Who on earth is this guy to simply declare himself king of the world? That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue and then I interview an interesting guest, and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.